Now, suddenly, November 2nd is right around the corner. That fast approaching date is when the Alliance of Small Island States, AOSIS, will make its way to Glasgow to continue the fight for change and action at the 26th COP. Now, after missing a year due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this COP is shaping up to be the most important one since Paris. So, what will this look like for us as small islands? What are our goals and how will we reach them? My name is Andy Liebert and this is Islands on Alert, a podcast where we discuss how climate change has already affected our islands, what's in store for us if the Earth continues to warm, and how we can help to reduce the devastating impacts. Now today for our final episode, I have the absolute pleasure welcoming two tenacious leaders of the Alliance of Small Island States, AOSIS, Ambassador Diann Black-Layne and Ambassador Aubrey Webson. Ambassador Black-Layne is the current director of the Department of the Environment of Antigua Barbuda and Antigua Barbuda's Ambassador for Climate Change. She's also the lead climate negotiator for the Alliance of Small Island States, AOSIS. Welcome, Ambassador. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. And Ambassador Aubrey Webson is the ambassador to the United Nations for Antigua and Barbuda and the current chair of AOSIS. Before that, he was the chief executive of Perkins International, and for several years, he was an institutional development consultant for the Perkins School for the Blind. Hello, both. Thank you so much once again for being a part of our series of podcasts, and thank you for making it what it is expected to be, the grand climax to this wonderful journey.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, great. Well, both of you are quite familiar to me. I've known Ambassador Black-Layne for many years. I've known Ambassador Webson for many years as well. But this is the first time I think that I'm speaking to you both in the same forum, and so that is quite a pleasure. Can we start off by, for the benefit of our audience, by both of you telling us about yourselves, your roles within AOSIS, and how you got started with this very important work? And I'm going to start with the lady first, Ambassador Black-Layne.
Okay, thank you. So I hope you can hear me well. And
Yes.
I have a cold.
Oh my. Sorry to hear that.
It's my first one in 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I've been working in the field of environment my entire career. So I studied at the University of the West Indies, and I did biology and IT. I didn't do IT, but I did programming, computer programming. And I did that combination because I could see in the future that the future of environmental management is not necessarily focusing on, the tree hugging kind of Greenpeace kind of work, but actually merging it into the work that everybody's doing. And IT was, computer programming was a new field at the time coming forward to try and merge. Is one way of mainstreaming and merge. I see technology was our way forward in protecting and preserving our environment. So when I did my master's, I did environmental management, just marine management, and there for the first time, I began to realize that the financial system, if it's not aligned with social, environmental policies as well, can be devastating, can be great for some people, but devastating for others. And when you have a great IT system, you can make it work for as many people as possible. So I started to also focus on the financing part of the actions of human beings and how those are creating negative issues and how we can work on them. So I became the head of the department for a long time ago. I don't want to state the year, but and I started to get involved in, I'm a marine biologist. I tell myself, everybody, I'm a marine biologist, but I realized that the marine space is being destroyed and degraded by actions on land. And what I realized that in the environmental field, that we needed to go internationally and speak to a lot of the issues that we were dealing with at home if we wanted to get things done. So fast forward to where you and I are speaking today, we basically at the department, I am the head of the director of the Department of the Environment, and I'm ambassador for climate change for Antigua and Barbuda. And I do a lot of the negotiations, and I focus a lot on climate finance, because to me, that is the core of the problem that we're facing. That is where we can really focus in on where we're going wrong. And we're also, the Department of the Environment is an accredited entity to the Green Climate Fund and the Adaptation Fund. I can explain more what that is later. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I think that whatever we negotiate internationally have to be implemented on the ground. And the results of the implementation on the ground must be fed back to the international community so we can say what the lessons learned and how we're moving ahead. And myself and my team have found it to be it's a hard work to be negotiated internationally and focusing on implementation on the ground. But we've been able to successfully channel back lessons learned to the international community. And not only that, negotiate with a platform of confidence. And this is why I think we wanted to chair AOSIS, because we have that experience of in an island state and in the region of like the OECS, what we negotiate on the ground, what is implemented on the ground, and then that whole feedback loop that is there. So we felt that we were not only just going forward and repeating our mantra and our position, we can also stand with confidence on everything that we say because we actually experience that on the ground. And this is what I think that I myself bring to the team at AOSIS.
True confession, because let us go back a few years, because I'm one that, and this is a confession, an admirer of your growth and development over the years. My first memory of you was a participant in a local Queen show many years ago.
Yes.
So it goes that far back, Ambassador Webson. It goes far back. So it actually competes with probably oh, there you go. There you go. There you go. Yeah, man. I don't know if you won, but you probably placed. I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Actually, I placed first runner-up, and it was a pivotal time in my career because I got a scholarship. Go to University of the West Indies, which my mother had 10 children, so I'm child number 5. So there was no way she could have afforded to send me to college. So actually, I wasn't going to go into the Queen show because I am so shy, at least back in those days. Mm-hmm. And I remember one of my mentors, Ernemi Brathwaite now, yes. She really, I was working at Scotiabank with her, and I'm really grateful to her because she said, no, you have to learn to speak. And I was like, I'm in public. And I was like, no way I could do that. I never wanted to do that. I was terrified. And so I had to go to a lot of training. I really surrendered to her training because I had no other person to look to. And so I came first. She said, if you participate in this Queen show, I will help you with speaking. And she said, and I will make sure you get a scholarship. It was the first year scholarships were offered to winners because I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I want to go to college. So she said, no, I'll get you a scholarship. So because of the promise of a scholarship, I actually participated, and I came first runner-up, and I got the scholarship.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. The way things happen. Ambassador Webson.
I would be speaking in public, and look at where I am.
Yeah, look at where you are now. Lead negotiator.
Lead speaker, which is, yes. I'm not, but I still get very nervous.
I can understand that. But at the very same time, Ambassador Webson, I have also known you for a very long time as well. But here you are now, head of the mission for Antigua and Barbuda at the United Nations, and very much involved in the work of AOSIS. Could you just tell us how you personally got started in all of this, and maybe what it has meant for you?
Head of the mission is not something that I ever thought. It was never on my radar as a job. I have been, I am a newcomer to environmental activism and environmental work as well. My first entree into the work of environmental activism and into advocating for persons, for island states, what took place in Paris under the guidance of that. And I will never forget the Paris Agreement and the negotiations into which I was thrust as one of the leaders of Antigua and Barbuda. I started my career primarily coming out of University of the West Indies in the 80s in the field of activism work, social activism work for persons with disabilities, specifically for persons who are blind. I am myself blind, and I particularly became engaged in seeking better opportunities. I went on through UWI, University of the West Indies, and other universities to acquire a degree in international development. I've always been very engaged in international work, in social transformation work, in change. So it was very interesting and exciting for me throughout my career dealing with that, particularly in Africa and the Caribbean. I became, when I was asked to become ambassador to the UN for Antigua and Barbuda, it was a significant honor. It was a major change. I had been involved in international. I had led Perkins, and we were engaged in some 70 plus countries around the world. So I had international development knowledge behind me, knowing and working in just about every continent and being reasonably successful in different ways. So coming into this job, the only thing I had was my international experience and my ability to negotiate with governments. And I suppose that gave me some opportunity, gave me a leg up to be able to participate in this particular field. But it was a real honor because I was the first person with visual impairment, one of the first person with disability to be appointed at the United Nations as a permanent representative. So that was an honor, and that by Antigua, and it was an honor for me personally. I became engaged, as I said, at the Paris Agreement and negotiations, and spent a lot of time with countries that really were very difficult to deal with in terms of moving the needle to assist in the things we are talking about today. And that was really, for me, I love negotiating. I love the discussion and I love the debate. So I got my teeth into it. I became, when we thought of taking on AOSIS, I accepted it with my colleagues here and with Ambassador Black-Layne under certain conditions relating to capacity, relating to the fact that we had other work to do and we couldn't drop the ball and so on. It is quite interesting, quite exciting to be doing it, and I look forward to taking it through.
Yeah, like Ambassador Black-Layne, you are somewhat responsible, and I've known you for quite a while, and responsible for my own personal growth and development, because I remember as a rookie reporter that you became somewhat one of my sources early in my career as the individual responsible for the Antigua and Barbuda Council for the Blind. So unlike...
It was the Caribbean Council.
Caribbean Council for the Blind.
I never really...
Yeah.
The Caribbean Council.
Caribbean Council for the Blind, CCB.
Yeah.
So our paths are somewhat intertwined.
Yes.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And here it is that it has come full circle that I have been able to continue this journey now in terms of what AOSIS is doing and the work behind of it. But let us speak about your collaboration. How both of you, in terms of the Antigua and Barbuda permanent mission and where you stand as the chair of AOSIS, and Ambassador Black-Layne's work on the ground, how do they all come together? How does it all come together in pursuing exactly what needs to be achieved for small island states?
So I'll take a quick stab at it and then let Diann. Diann has had a long-standing, Ambassador Black-Layne has had a long-standing relationship with the mission, even before I came here. And it has been, from my understanding, a very successful partnership working on these issues of environment, very long. Participated in a number of the major landmark international treaties and international international laws that relate to environment. Antigua and Barbuda has been a leader in this area for a very long time. And Diann and others before her, the late John Ash and Ambassador Lewis and those folks led Antigua in that. When I came in, I only continued to build on what existed. I found her, Diann Black-Layne, an outstanding partner and somebody to work that I could work with very well. And I am very plain spoken. She is, and we built a partnership that I personally enjoy and continue to address aggressively the needs for Antigua and Barbuda, and now broader the needs as it relates to island states. So that's kind of how I got involved with Diann, and have enjoyed that partnership going on.
Is it that pleasing of an experience, Ambassador Black-Layne?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
No, I was asking if it's that pleasing of an experience.
I have to say though, when I first got this job, one of the first things I did was try to build a relationship with the mission in New York.
Okay.
Because from the first time we tried to have the New York office keep calling us when I first got the job. What is the position on this and this? I'm like, well, I don't know. So I had to realize that I had to get Antiguans together, the heads of department together to get their positions. And they were like, they don't know either. So I realized, and then they're really disconnected between the mission in New York, the missions overseas period, to what was happening on the ground. There wasn't any connection at all. Mm-hmm. And so we formed a committee called the National Coordinating Mechanism. And we asked Dr. John Ash, was the deputy head of mission at the time, to come down every quarter to speak to government officials. Mm-hmm. At first, he was a little bit reluctant, and then he started to come every quarter, and we started to connect with what is happening at the UN in terms of environmental field to what the environmental departments were doing, illicit fisheries, forestry, finance, and everybody else. And we started to, then a picture started to emerge of what was happening, what the mission was doing. And even in Antigua, we didn't appreciate what the mission was doing. So they didn't appreciate what Dr. Ash was doing and his team was doing at the mission at the time. At the regional level, I remember going to meetings and trying to get Dr. Ash or Antigua and Barbuda elected to positions. And our regional negotiators did not understand what he was doing either. So as the head of the mission, the deputy head at the time, and at the mission in Antigua, we used to hear from our regional negotiators, our counterparts, Antigua feel like they can, like they back border, like we feel like we're too big, like we think big. And I actually thought like them too. So Dr. Ash would tell me, hey, it's one vote, one country. One vote, one, he keeps repeating that to me. And eventually my eyes opened too. It required an eye-opening experience for many myself, as well as our regional colleague, that we can do this. Mm-hmm. He was also one of the deputies, I think he was deputy chair of AOSIS at the time. At that time, AOSIS had a chair and deputy chair. And he was deputy vice chair or something like that. And he introduced me to AOSIS at the time, and he used to fundraise very successfully for AOSIS. So my eyes opened a lot to see, as a small country, he said, you're never too small to make a difference. I really thought we were too small. I honestly came into this job thinking we were too small to make a difference at the international level. I just wanted to get access to the international information and the knowledge that was there to do work at home. I never thought in my dreams that we could make a difference. And Dr. Ash said, no, you can make a difference. And so we started to broaden the way that we think, to a point now where every meeting I go to, and I teach all my staff this, when you go into the meeting, you have to stand strong. You're just as important as everybody else. And your job is to go and make a difference. And so Antiguans now, in terms of our negotiators, think like that. And we were able to make that connection with the mission in New York. And then it just took off from there. And so we have a really good relationship, and that transition with Ambassador Webson. And I must say it's been really, I'm not saying that because he's listening and we're on a podcast. When you change hands, because, we went through a change of government and change of people. When you change hands, you always kind of anticipate this starting over from some lower point of where you were finished. And then you have to do, that educational plan, education of it takes so long, and there's so much going on. It's so dynamic. We don't have time for that, But Ambassador Webson just picked it up, and that's it. We're running even faster.
Sorry.
It wasn't like a drag on our progression, so that was really helpful.
Yeah, this builds a wonderful story and a wonderful narrative of how AOSIS has pretty much developed under the guidance and support and the expertise that Antigua and Barbuda has offered. What is strengthened? And I see the wonderful collaboration taking place between the UN mission here and the Environment Division in Antigua and Barbuda. What has strengthened your candidacy for becoming the chair of AOSIS, and what are some of the challenges that have come in your way?
Well, quite simply, really. I mean, and as described by Ambassador Black-Layne, the position that Antigua Barbuda has led in the UN circuit, from negotiating and from its role in participating in leadership. There was really no major issue to become the chair. The chairmanship of AOSIS goes regionally, goes from region to region every 4 or so years. So It was the Caribbean's turn, and Belize and Antigua both wanted to lead, so we agreed to split it. There were particular circumstances why Belize wanted to lead. It was interesting because we would have wanted to, we initially thought we would go first, but we didn't. And in some ways it was fortuitous, because look what happened last year, right?
Yes.
With the COVID-19. And it slowed down some of the gains that we as a unit would have made last year. But Belize did a tremendous job leading under the circumstances and really increased the profile of AOSIS. Antigua and Barbuda is building on that and have broadened the whole, the emphasis of the work of AOSIS.
Mm-hmm. Then, Ambassador Black-Layne, you want to jump in here?
I think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah. How do you keep it all together, though? Because over the series of podcasts and all of the conversations that I've had, I've noted the differences in cultures, in social perspectives, backgrounds, histories, and all of that. And AOSIS is spread across islands, over oceans. How do you bring it all together in terms of focusing on the one goal, the mission of this organization?
If I may?
Okay.
Yeah. So, what we've done is that Ambassador Webson focuses on, this is the way that we have structured our management of the AOSIS is unique. Where Ambassador Webson is based in New York and addresses all of the UN matters that AOSIS needs to address, and I'm based in Capital. And with that system that we've put in place, first of all, I think has strengthened, if I'm not available, he's available. We speak to each other as most time on a Sunday when we have a lot of time to talk. And so we've been able to spread, we didn't spread ourselves too thin because we have 2 persons assigned. On the issue of message, what we try to do to bring all the islands together is to focus on our messaging. And the messaging is something that is very simple. So when we took over, one of the first things, as Ambassador said, is the big issue: how are we going to participate in negotiations when persons don't have vaccine? And we were one of the first groups that brought out the issue of vaccine. And everybody then said, oh, yeah, that makes sense. How are we going to engage internationally and we can't even travel? And so all of a sudden that took off. Now our new messaging now is about climate change and moving forward, and even development and finance, is to focus, like I said, on the financial issue. And what we've discovered is focus a lot and study finance, because as the United States presidents, one after the other, well, not Trump, but President Biden for sure, keeps saying, is that where we spend our money shows our value. And that is true. So we wanted to focus on where we're spending our money. It's going to show where we value the environment or not. Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
And what we have noticed is that when you look at, for example, climate change or development, when you look at how money is being spent throughout the world, you begin to understand why we're having these problems. There is a disproportionate of expenditure in several countries, or among several race of people, or in several sectors of people, and that can tell you, if you focus on the money and where it is flowing, what the issue is. And if you can focus on that, that is an easy thing for us to communicate to each other as a team in AOSIS, to you who's doing this podcast, and even to all of our countries around. It's a very simple, straightforward message. Sorry, if you're subsidizing the oil and gas and coal and LNG engine to the tune of over $650 billion per year, and for adaptation money and mitigation money under the climate convention is only $2.4 billion per year, we're going to have a climate problem. It's as simple as that. Yeah. And so we reduce our messaging down to dollars and cents. Everybody understand that. You don't have to read or write to understand that. You don't have to you can be in any part of the world to understand that. And so that is how we've been trying, at least with Ambassador, to spread that message.
Yeah, and there's widespread consensus then across AOSIS, I would assume.
Yes, because what, again, as Ambassador said, as Diann says, we do a lot of do a lot of work at the local level, and she gets that messaging across. I do a lot of work here at the ambassadorial level and put that message across. So we keep the message simple and specific. You know that old thing, keep it simple, stupid?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
We try to do that. Mm-hmm. The vaccine thing is instructive. In February, Diann and I spoke about vaccine. Early February, late January. And we said, we're going to make it. There were a lot of people who said, no, you shouldn't be so aggressive on this. Well, we said it, the British picked it up. We said, basically, if you want a successful COP, you must have people from the islands present. You can't have a COP without AOSIS members. Otherwise, what is the point? You're speaking about the most vulnerable and so forth and so forth. And we spoke about the need for vaccine for all negotiators, all islands, and so on. Everybody said, well, you all are being too aggressive on this thing. So no, we're being very honest, very straightforward. The British minister picked it up, and voila, there we are today. They were speaking themselves now that, yes, we have to get everybody vaccinated to come to the COP and so forth. The message of finance is clear. You can't have $600 billion being spent in one area that affects the environment, and 400 being spent in the other, and then you are saying, why is it such a problem? Well, it's clear. It's in front of you. So we intend to get that messaging stronger and stronger. The island states get it. The ambassadors get it. We have a meeting coming up in the next hour, and we're going to be talking about that, and so on.
Mm-hmm. All right. AOSIS, and I want to dig a little bit deeper. Would you consider it to be, and quote unquote here, a democratic organization where the voices of everyone is heard? Does it hold any sort of veto power over any country or territory? How is it structured? Could you share with us? Yes. Uh-huh.
It's because it has become such a strong grouping within the United Nations, but it actually is an ad hoc organization, as I said, where its leadership goes around from region to region and in a very ad hoc. I mean, anybody from the Caribbean, when it's the Caribbean turn, can say, I would like to be. And the Caribbean countries agree among themselves, similar in ACE or the Pacific. That's one thing. On the other hand, there's a bureau, which is made up of the immediate past chair. And in our case, because we were the immediate, Caribbean was the immediate past chair. The bureau is made up of a representative from each of the regions based on the leadership roles that they had in previous to the current chair. So we have right now the Maldives, because they were the chair before Belize, and the current chair of the Pacific, which is Tonga. So they form the bureau, and that bureau represents the work based on the structures that each region. So it's not a formal organization; it's informal. But when it comes to operating within the negotiating field, we work with G77, we work with the LDCs, and we have established a structure that is respected by all of the members, but it has no power over any of the members in reality.
Okay. So you don't see a need at this time to improve that structure so that the voices can be somewhat strengthened?
Yes, I think we are trying, we see a need for that, and we're putting that forward, but you got to be careful of something that works.
Yes.
That you don't try to make it in a position that then destroys what's working. So you got to do that very slowly. I think the first step we probably will be looking at is some continuity around the leadership. Right at this time, each chair has to go out there and raise money to get the thing going. It's been very successful, but that could be more formalized if they could have continuity of staff and so on. So that would be probably one of the things. The other thing would probably be, how do you get it recognized as an organ within the UN, similar to G77 or LDCs or LLDCs, and that would be another step. But again, you got to be careful that you don't unravel what is working. You got to make sure you understand and help. And the way the structure is, there is no continuity. So you can't say, I will continue this for the next X. You have to work together to make it happen. So we believe it can and should and will, but it's one step at a time.
Yeah. Setting the scene there for AOSIS to play a more role of permanence in the whole structure of the UN organ and ensure that its voice continues to be heard, Ambassador Webson. But in terms of the 6th Climate Assessment Report, I'd want to turn our attention to that now, just recently released, and it told a very gripping and telling tale of where we are so far as climate change is concerned. As a matter of fact, the report got a lot of play throughout the media, across the media, right across the world. How is this report any different from the previous? What is the story that it tells? How has it increased concern for the members of AOSIS? And how now will you use it as leverage to advance what the member states of AOSIS actually need?
I'll let Diann deal with that.
Well, that report is due every 4 years. So it's 6 times 4, so it's 20-something years of IPCC reports. And fundamentally, the IPCC reports haven't changed their view, but most people, including the media, only read the summary. And the summary is negotiated. A lot of people don't realize it, but we have climate negotiators, especially some of those funded by oil and gas companies, attending the IPCC report. So the IPCC meeting, and they go there to make sure that the word oil and gas industry or anything negative against the oil and gas industry, is not said. And that has been happening now for 24 years. Now I want you to get a picture in your mind that the Convention of Climate Change was ratified, I think, in 1992. A long time ago. The convention itself was the Convention of Biological Diversity, Convention of Land Degradation, and Climate Change. The Rio Trio, we call them. And those conventions, were landmark.
Right.
The thing is that way back then, even prior to that, we knew that what is in this report today, it was known back then. Island states, AOSIS were negotiating way back then. In other words, this is not the fact that you're openly saying it. In other words, it was messaging that was hidden. It was messaging that was subverted. And the fact that we're openly saying it now is a good thing, but the fact that we're openly saying it now says to you how bad things are. Like there's a lot you and I and Ambassador and AOSIS don't even know that is going on, but it's bad. And so now we can no longer play to the tune of the oil and gas industry that only wants to say good things about their products. And so this is great that this is finally happening. It happened in the previous report. It was the first time, only one report ago, I think, where it says that it's an 80-something% chance or 90-something% chance that global warming has been caused by humans. That was one report ago. So what? How many floods? How many Category 5 hurricanes? How many heat domes do we need for us to openly say something that we knew 40 years ago? So all of us are Christians, right? And we read our Bible. And in the Bible, we all know one thing. If you want to exorcise a demon, the Bible says you have to call it by name. And you ask it, what is your name? Right? You ask it, what is the name of this thing? And what we have not done, and we've only just done in this report, is to name that demon. Before that, we couldn't name it. So we can't fix it. We can't exercise it unless we name it. Right, Ambassador? Am I reading my Bible well?
Yes, except that we all aren't Christians. This is AOSIS.
Okay. Right. For those of us who are Christian, I don't know the other religion, but in our Christianity, and even in many religions,
but in all religions,
in our religion, you have to know something, you have to call it by name before you can fix it. And before you can change it. Nowhere in the...
That's just a realistic approach to anything that we deal with.
In anything that we do. If you go to the doctor sick, the doctor has to diagnose you with what is your problem. That takes a long time. And he can give you medicine, right? Which doesn't work.
A very real analogy is we often would speak of collateral damage in war, and really when we're speaking of that, we are actually speaking of human cost, homes, housing. And until we begin to say that, people don't get it. And it's the exact thing. Until you begin to call a spade, people don't get it.
And so we have had these reports are scientific reports, and science is not supposed to be negotiated. But we have scientists too, just like everybody else, have been infiltrated, and they're funded by the oil and gas industry, and they say things that, the oil and gas industry want them to say. They say the truth, but they say it in a way that does not, you and I, if you're not a scientist like myself, because I'm a scientist, you won't understand. And they talk about big words, probability, and all of those kind of things. And so now, they clearly state oil and gas, coal, LNG. The United States, for example, say LNG is green. It's not green. It's not green. So, and then we blame other things. It's because we're eating too much meat. All of those things. But the oil and gas and coal and LNG engines producing 86%. But we have spent a lot of money and a lot of time becoming vegans, and even if you do that, it's not going to help nobody.
Okay. In other words, so does this report, Ambassador Black-Layne, and is this one of the distinguishing features of it, leaves absolutely no doubt that climate change, the action of humans, are to be blamed for what the world is going through today? Is that it? Is that the distinguishing feature of the report?
This report named the demon. It's not only said caused by human beings. It named the demon. It said the oil and gas and coal industry.
Exactly.
The burning of fossil fuel. It named the demon.
Okay. And is this what OASIS has been advocating all along?
We've known this all along. We've said this all along.
You see, prior to this, as Ambassador is saying, we all knew it. We've been saying it, but we've been saying it amongst ourselves. And the larger community wasn't saying it. Now we are all saying it. And now we are all expected to take action because we now have, as you put it, the demon named before us. So that's the difference between this report and prior reports. And there is now an open door for action, we hope, and we will continue at AOSIS to push.
One of the things that I've admired over this journey and over the series of podcasts that I've done is the collection of experts, intellectuals, advocates that have been able to see collected around this single cause. And it says a lot about AOSIS in terms of how it is going to progress now to the next COP26, because the resources are available to you to pretty much get the change, and it's going to be really admirable that you're able now to move COP26 and world leaders into your way of thinking. Is this a real possibility?
That's our express hope and action. Mm-hmm. That's what we are going to London, to Glasgow. Yes. That's what we are going to Glasgow with that intention, working with all our colleagues. Firstly, our own, AOSIS members.
Yes.
And secondly, the partnerships that we will build. We have been saying as AOSIS Chair that it's time for implementation. It's time to really stop talking and do and make action, because for us it's not a simple matter of survival. It is really existential, and therefore we need action that is going to begin to address the problem. So that's what we are taking to Glasgow. That's the talk we're getting right now, but I think for the first time there's a lot of plain talk and an opportunity for new action with a new direction.
Over these past few weeks, we've discussed almost all things climate change, from the basic environmental science of varying adaptive techniques to new business for green technology, to what it means to seek climate justice. And today, as a grand finale, we get to speak about what this has all been leading up to, COP26. So, as you can see from our conversations with Ambassador Black-Layne and Ambassador Webson, we have negotiators working tirelessly to advocate for our islands. The COP26 negotiations are most important for shaping the future of how our islands will respond to the changing climate. We, as citizens of small islands, must advocate for our homes and speak out against injustices created by high carbon emitting countries. Now, this is our last episode, but we appreciate your support while tuning in. Thank you for listening to Islands on Alert. I'm Andy Liebird. Over and out. Islands on Alert is produced by Leila Henry and Lloyd Price under the Alliance of Small Island States media team. Special thanks to Tashwa James and Bianca Bedu for additional scripting. Join us next time.